Hi, I'm Andrew, and this is Blaster Breakdown. Today, the Cheetah Mark 1. Out of the box, this is a handy single-shot rival ball blaster, and there's a kit you can purchase, upgrading it to fire short darts. However, it does have a weird kind of front-loading ramrod mechanism, which I wasn't too keen on. So instead, I made my own short dart conversion with the unique twisting brass breech. With no changes to the plunger tube or the spring, this is now giving me a really neat 150 FPS, perfect for super stock events, and the Epic XXX modular bearing scar gives me excellent accuracy. This was a really simple one-day mod. Shaping the brass was the hardest part. Before we start though, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to like if you enjoy my content. Alright, let's have a look inside.
Okay, I've made some good progress. So here's what my brass breech and barrel looks like now. So there's two parts. One is about 150 millimeters of 17/32. I've just cut an opening for short dart to fit in. And the 9/16 is about 75 millimeters or so. And again, I've cut a equivalent matching opening for the dart to slip in. Now that cut isn't quite half the depth of both pieces of brass. And what that means is if I twist the inner 17/32, I've now got a seal at both edges because of that overlap. So it means I can open and close the breech just with a simple twist. Now the question is, how do I ensure that I don't twist the breech too far and end up opening it again at this end? Let me show you how I've done that. On the end of the inner 17/32 brass, I've cut this kind of tongue that's about maybe 2/5 of the way around. And then at the rear of the outer 9/16 brass, I've glued in this little piece of 17/32. It's about 1/6 of the inner circumference. So when I slot this in and the breech is open, you can see it touches there, so I can't open any further that way. And when I close the breech, that touches right here, and the breech is closed, and I can't turn it any further that way to begin opening it again that way. So that piece ensures that I can go from open to closed, but I won't over-rotate in either direction. Okay, I thought I might talk about how I work with brass because that's a question that does come up now and then. So I generally start with my rough cuts using a Dremel, cutting tool on the Dremel till I have roughly the shape that I want. And then I'll use hand files to get the profile just how I want it, depending on the breech that I'm making. And what I do then to ensure smooth movement is use a series of different grit sandpaper. So 280, 400, 1000, 1500, and then 2000. And that progressively gets the surface smoother and smoother. And at that point, I'll grab some of my good old metal polish and give it a good polish with a nice soft cloth. And that gives me a smooth, shiny finish that I know is going to move freely. It can be tricky getting inside, especially with your 9/16 brass. A short piece like this, you can usually just sort of kind of roll a tube and stick it in. If you're working with a longer piece of brass, it can be a bit trickier. One suggestion I have, especially if you've got fragile shapes that might have long tongues that can easily be bent, is if you get a piece of 1/2-inch brass, this will fit inside 17/32. And so what I'll often do is just stick that over like so. And then when I'm sanding or shaping or polishing, I know I'm not going to bump any of the weak points and end up with my brass being bent. If I drop it as well, I know it's going to be protected. So that's a good tip. The other thing that I find is useful is this is a piece of 6mm steel, and I've glued on some old darts, some foam of the darts and one at the tip. And this is really good if you want to polish the inside of your breeches. You can put a bit of metal polish on the inside and give that a good rub. It's good enough for the 9/16, which is a bit looser, but you can press it against the sides to get a good polish. So that's a really useful tool. This sort of thing is fantastic for unjamming as well. So I always try to remember to bring this to our events so I've got it nearby if I have to deal with any jams on the day. Okay, back to the cheetah. So with my breech and barrel assembled, I know that needs to sit about here. And I need the opening to be in between this screw post and the front of the plunger tube about there. My plan is to make use of the original barrel piece, which slots in like so. And what I want to do is have enough space on the inside here. So I'll probably just grind that out until the 9/16 brass fits in the back, and then that will hold the rear nice and firm. And at the front, I might grind down this hop-up piece for rival balls so the inside is smooth, and then probably just use some duct tape to pat it out to center that brass within the front of this barrel. So that's the inner work. The outer work, of course, will be cutting a hole in the top here so I have access to that breech. Okay, this is coming along really nicely now. So first thing to show you is this hole I've cut in the top of the shell, and kind of lines up with this bit of moulding that holds the front of the plunger tube in place there. So it's more or less in line, and at the front in line with this screw post. So I'll line that up, and that's wide enough to get a dart in reasonably easy both sides. So that's nice and neat. The other hole I needed, of course, was the original barrel piece. So remember that connects to the front of the plunger tube and is held in place in the front here. So of course we need a hole in the top. And this is what I've come up with. There's a little indentation right there. That sits in line with the front screw post. So that was kind of the front edge I needed, and then cut that all the way to the back here. I found that there was actually a removable piece that sat in the back of this bit and went inside here. So I just popped that out. Won't need that anymore. And with this piece that's left, that's what friction fits in here. Cut that a bit shorter and drilled it out with a 9/16 drill bit so that it will now fit my 9/16 brass really neatly. So that's nice and snug. So I can glue that in place when I'm happy with my placement. So here's what it looks like when we put it together. So we've got this little knob here that fits in there. And then we've got a bit at the front here, flat bit at the front here, and space for the screw post there. So this is how my openings line up. They're not dead in line vertically. When I'm using the blaster, it's going to be at an angle, and I'm going to be loading in at an angle, so I don't need it to be dead straight vertically. So that's the opening. That's how it looks from the top. Now when I have my brass in, I'll glue that there, maybe another millimeter or so. And so when I'm using it, twist to open, pop my dart in, twist to close, and that's ready to go. So for shell cutting, that's pretty much it. I can go ahead and glue the brass into the back of this piece. I think I wanted another millimeter or so. It's pretty tight, but that's fine. And then you can see it's a little bit wobbly. So I'll put some tape around the front here to center this brass within this piece. And then we should pretty much be done. Okay, so this one is just about done now. So got some duct tape around the front of the barrel, so that's centered. And I've got epoxy between the brass and the plastic. So that's curing at the moment, which is fine. But I can go ahead and put this together now. So the plunger in the plunger tube goes like so. So the catch is that way with the spring up. Plunger tube has this little slot here for that. And this should just sit inside here. That's good. Our trigger like so. Should I put the safety in? Yeah, why not? Okay, so when it's pressed downwards that way to the right, it's blocking our trigger. When we push it up this way to the left, then the trigger can move. Okay, that's good. And then the left side of the shell is pretty good. And then as usual, I've got my M2.6 by 10, or is it 12? These might be 12s, hex head or socket cap screws. Makes it nice and easy to take apart and put back together. Okay, there we are. So I'm not going to test the spring because I need the epoxy to cure before I want to put any load on it. But I do want to show you a bearing scar option that I'm going to try with this. So these are some pieces from the Epic XXXX kit that's available on Thingiverse. And so it's got 3 sets of 3 bearings. This one's available in a number of configurations depending on how close together the bearings are, the angle of twist, and so on. So this is 12.7 millimeters opening or separation or distance between the bearings, which is fairly tight, and 20 degrees, which is also fairly tight. So there's a number of pieces in the kit, and it's really well thought out. There's a collet piece that screws onto different size barrel mounts. So this one is 17/32. There's, I think, 5/8 and 16 millimeters. But then you just sort of pop your collet on, and that will sit flush against the end. And just tightening that on gives a nice firm, and that's not going to move. And then the B-car attachment that you want can just screw on directly. And of course, if you had multiple configurations and wanted to swap them out, it's real simple just to unscrew it and put the new one on. So great design. I've used this on a Prophecy recently and was very pleased with the results. So that's what I'm going to try with this one. So the next thing will be to take this outside in a couple of days after that epoxy has cured.
Okay, let's have a look at some accuracy now. Now I just cronied this, and with the stock spring plunger tube, no other changes, I'm getting right on 150 FPS, which is perfect. It's exactly what I need for super stock events. So I've got a little pistol-sized red dot sight on top that I've dialed in, hopefully well. So 10 worker red Gen 2s. Let's just see how we go. 50 feet from the target, as usual. Going pretty straight. I find it useful carrying my spare darts in a magazine in my pocket. Makes it easy to reach and know you're always grabbing the dart in the right orientation. That was a good one. A little bit of muscle memory. It's quite easy to reload this way, even when you're on the run. One or two are dropping a little bit low. I think we've got a pretty good spread left to right, which is nice. Always good to know your darts are going straight. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, let's have a look at some gameplay footage now. This was taken at a recent Brisbane area Nerf Group Superstock event. Oh, I did get him. Ah, ha, ha. That's my shot of the day. So there you go, that's the Cheetah Mark 1. Now a top-loading, short dart, single-shot pistol with a unique twisting breech, really handy for single-shot games. Please leave any questions and comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.